Call the meeting to order, and please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Any additions to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, you do have a new commissioner's voucher listing dated 8/9. It is a complete listing with additions to it, and there is some changes to county revenue. I can tell you the departments that are updated on it here.
Mr. Chairman, I will move the agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, motion and second to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consent agenda, minutes from July 27th, the auditor's warrants from the 30th and the 6th, commissioner warrants with the add-ons, hospital warrants, and treasurer's report.
Mr. Chairman, I do not have a treasurer's report from July 21, so we'll have to delete that from the consent agenda.
Okay.
And the commissioner's warrants you have are from 8/9 of 21. That's the newest listing.
With those changes, I move for approval.
Support. Okay, moved in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Brad? Sandy? Good morning.
Good morning. I believe we have Tom and Tucker on from the healthcare financing consulting firm that we're using. And I guess I would ask Tom to go through and update the information that I passed out from when we last talked about the refinancing. There are a few little tweaks to that, and I would ask Tom or Tucker to go through those, please.
Tom or Tucker, Brad is at the podium and requesting that you go through the information that you have regarding the financing.
Very good. Tucker, you or me? You. Great. Gentlemen, Tucker was in touch with the two banks that were at the front of the pack, and one of them came back, First Independent, the one that offered the long-term fix, and reduced their rate by 5 basis points. Not a major amount, but a nice gesture. Peoples, with whom we're focused on a 12-year initial fix, did not adjust their rate, but they were good enough to let him know that a desire they had expressed for perhaps a higher liquidity standard, maybe a slight tweak to your debt service coverage ratio, they have backed away from. So they are content with your existing financial covenants as First Independent is. Those are really the only two pieces of news. I did put together just a modest update reflecting those changes to the document we had in front of you a week ago. But really, I think the decision in front of you is the same one we tentatively discussed a week ago. Really, which of the two pricing plans do you prefer? And Tucker, I'm wondering, Tucker was hoping to hear back from both of the banks about whether they would continue to honor the idea of, from today forward, honoring the indicated rate they've given us for up to 12 weeks as we move toward closing, which we hope will be adequate time. We think the odds are good. Tucker, did you hear back from both?
Yeah, both of them are willing to do it. I think there was a caveat in there unless there were major changes from when I talked to them and today, so.
And have you looked at the indices? Nothing crazy happened in the last few days, did it?
No, I don't think so.
Got it. So, gentlemen, I think we're really where we were a week ago, except we now know everyone's final position.
So basically, we're being asked to choose which one of these you're going to go back to and then draft documents?
Exactly.
And just as a recap, I guess the people's proposal has the lesser interest charge. There's no payment penalty. Do you have a recommendation at all? I guess I know which way I'm leaning, but
Well, if we all had a crystal ball, that would be helpful, but the people's proposal, has a pretty attractive rate at 211 locked in for the first 12 years. As I understand it, the people's does not have a prepayment penalty, and but I do think they did require the appraisal. You could make the argument to take the low rate and try to prepay that along so that you were done, near the end of the first 12 years.
right.
And it would give you the it could give you the flexibility to fund that in reserves or pay it as you go. So at the end of the 12 years, you're either done or you write the check then and be done.
Right.
The other had the little bit more convoluted prepayment clause.
Tom, on the prepayment for people's proposal, is it still a case where we'd have to just put the prepayment into reserve for the year and then make an annual payment?
I believe that is the preference they expressed to Tucker when he discussed prepayment with them, rather than doing it every single month.
Okay. So I guess that doesn't create any problems for you? Okay. Any thoughts?
Which of these two plans give us greater flexibility in the future without tying our hands?
I think there is some flexibility. If you look at Tom's last paragraph on the memo, he basically lays out the two different philosophies or theories. If you think you'll continue to build and finance much of the construction, and you're uncertain where the healthcare environment may be going the next few years, then it may be less likely that you prepay. And then that makes maybe the long-term rate, fixed by set by First Independent to be a little bit more attractive.
And that again was 2.75.
Mm-hmm. I believe so, yes.
2.7.
And then, if the partial repayment seems to make more sense, and, if results continue to be fair, and we all know that the rate of return on reserves isn't substantial, then it certainly, would make sense to, prepay that at that point on the people's side too. So, when we talked about this the other day, I think, we felt that the offers were very, very close together, and that when push came to shove, that you probably couldn't go wrong on either one.
And again, to reiterate, we don't have to do anything. Our current finance is not critical. It's just that this would give us a chance to save some interest. Excuse me.
Correct.
By doing this. So either one of these is going to be a better option than we've got right now. So it's
correct.
We can't go wrong on either one. It's just
the driver on this was to save interest expense.
Yep, exactly.
Over several years.
Yep. And then with our plans for future expansion with Independent, like you said, we might not be able to have as much liquidity for construction projects, but we still would have some, would we not?
True.
Yeah. And it's just a matter of how aggressive our future construction plans can be. I know we talked about the surgical unit and some other things. So do you have a preference, Brad, of which you feel would better suit us?
I think that that is the $64 question.
Right. And we're just looking for an opinion from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that there's benefits to both. I think that it's very difficult to predict the future at this point in time. Nobody saw the pandemic coming. Nobody knows where the Delta, variant leads us. Nobody knows if there's another variant out there that's going to pop up that puts us right back, at square one, so to speak. I know that we have talked about, potentially some, upgrades in the surgical area, and that is a possible potential capital item going forward. But again, I think we're all still trying to get a sense of what the new normal is, with the pandemic. I think that if you want to get the lowest rate without the prepayment penalty, then I think you're looking at the Peoples.
It's to be honest, that's kind of where I was leaning as well too. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't make ourselves cash poor by going that way, that we'd still would have enough reserves to have the flexibility in the future. And again, it's not that we would necessarily strap ourselves by going with Peoples. It's just that at the end of the 12 years, we might have to pay a little higher interest rate if we don't have that all paid off. So again,
That's where
it's
the
not
crystal
like
ball comes in handy.
Pardon?
That's where the crystal ball comes in handy.
Yes. Yeah.
My thinking is, with any luck, we'll have it paid off by the end of the 12 years and have additional savings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there wouldn't be that much to refinance at a higher rate.
As I mentioned before, the concept of having to pay for that, the
Appraisal.
appraisal, to have to pay that kind of money that was a substantial amount of money, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's one of the gyration, and that's probably the one heartburn with that.
Right. I mean, it's like there's absolutely no doubt that we've got enough equity there in that, but have to pay for an appraisal.
For the 10 to 20,000, if you look just in the first 12 years, if you made no prepayment, there's still an additional 320-some thousand of additional savings and interest. So even taking off that 10 or 20, you're still saving an additional 300 and some $1,000 in interest costs. It's still well worth it. I mean, even though it's offensive to have to pay that, there's still a huge savings to more than cover it.
So you're feeling that there'd be greater savings by going with the independent plans?
No, with Peoples.
With Peoples?
Yes.
Yeah.
Significant.
Yeah.
Of course, if you pay it off, with prepayments along the way, so that by the end of the 12 years, you'd probably save another $500,000 in interest costs.
Yeah. But again, the Peoples gives us greater flexibility in the future. Enough flexibility in the future, not the greater, but enough.
I think we have, plenty of flexibility, and yet you have the potential to save the most.
I guess in a way you can kind of rationalize too, instead of thinking that as an appraisal fee, just consider it points on a mortgage. And it's a little bit more palatable that way.
I guess
It's a very attractive rate, and you can hedge your bet a little bit and fund that prepayment, but not make the prepayment, so to speak, until you decide what you're going to do with these projects. And then once that decision is made, you can either start prepaying as you go, or you wait and see where you're at in 12 years and maybe write the check then. Just be done with it.
although you'd save more interest if you made the payments. But yeah, you have that flexibility either way.
And I mean, hopefully in a couple of years, you see where you come out with the pandemic, you settle out whether you've got any construction, plans, and then that will make the path more clear too.
Right. I guess I'd make a motion that we authorize Brad and Tom and Tucker to move forward with the people's proposal and draft whatever paperwork's required to move this forward.
I'll support that.
Any further discussion or comments?
No.
Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. We'd like to thank you for your time on this. I know that we've talked about it on and off, and It may not be the most sexy thing to talk about, but I do think it is a good business decision for the county.
Saving money is not all that.
Thank you.
Thank you, and Tom, thank you as well, too.
Yeah, thank you, Tom and Tucker.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, gentlemen.
Gentlemen, thank you for the direction.
Pardon?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?
Oh, just wanted to thank you for giving us that direction. And the only bad news out of this is Tucker gets to go back and turn down someone who made a very good offer, but that's the problem when you get two good ones.
Right.
Yep. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll let you go. Thank you, gentlemen.
Nick?
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right, first up for me today is project updates. The main update I have, I guess, is that they started on the 2021 contract number 3 on County Road 56 south of town. They're just wrapping up the second of the 4. So that's moving along. I think that might be done before harvest even, so that'll be a good deal. And the ones by Holland will be coming up, they'll be starting, sounds like in a few weeks, so. Then we also heard a rumor that the ones by Ruthden, they're gonna try to do late this year if they can get the pipe, so. That'll probably be November, I'm guessing, so it'll be really late, but hopefully most of harvest is wrapped up by then, so. So that's it for project updates. Next, those bids that we opened last week when Domain wasn't here, he did review them and they all checked out. So that's with Midwest Contracting for the low bid. So.
And again, the difference between high and low is substantial. Sometimes you never
Between
know.
high and low, but the bottom 3 were pretty close.
Yes,
So.
yep.
But, not everybody, I think the high bid was from Worthington, they were the farthest away, and I don't know what else they had on their plate this year. They might have bid some penalty into that too. I'm not sure, so. But no, we got good prices on that. I'm really happy with that, so. I did put out for bids on that tiling work, and I think I called the 3 that were mentioned in the meeting, and everybody kind of had the same thought, like, I'm pretty much full for the year already, and we ended up not getting any bids.
Okay.
So I'm sure that's why. So I guess as of right now, I'm almost thinking maybe wait till after harvest and rebid it again with the completion date of next year, so they have a long window. And so nobody comes in and does it during harvest, and closes the road down or whatever. So I guess if that's all right with you, that's what I'll plan to do. I'll probably wait till sometime after harvest and contact the same 3 people again and look for a completion date of 2022 right before harvest. So
That makes good sense, because there's nothing urgent about it. It's
no, I mean, it would have been nice to have it done so we could have seen what it looked like.
Right.
But whatever, as long as we get something on the books, get something started, I'd feel better about that we're doing something to try to remedy the issue, so. Okay. Next item for me then, we're getting low on gravel, so I'd like to have another gravel crushing project. When I sent my packet out, I didn't know how soon we'd be able to deliver that, but I think we can have a September 14th letting. So if that works for you, I'd like to have a letting on September 14th for 40,000 yards of gravel. That's pretty typical quantity for us, so. And I do have, I budgeted plenty for that, so.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion that we set a bid opening for September 14th at, what, 9:30, 10 o'clock?
10:30,
10:30?
yep, in case one gets mailed in, so.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
All right.
Excuse me, I do have one question on gravel. Previously, we talked about buying some gravel from, what was it, Roop Pit?
Yep,
And how many yards did we wind up buying, or how did that work out?
we're still hauling.
Okay.
It's still, we did a couple gradations and they came out actually really well. Yeah, no complaints. I mean, it's saving a lot of time hauling up in that part of the county.
And are we hauling ourselves, or do we sub that out? We're hauling ourselves.
We're doing the work ourselves, so.
Thank you, Nick.
How's the quality of that gravel?
The gradations came back really good. The old maintenance supervisor did actually reach out to me. He must have read the minutes in the paper, and he said, well, back in the day, that was kind of slimy. And I looked it up, and the stuff he was referring to was way on the north end of the pit, and this stuff is on the opposite corner.
Good.
So we checked it. We did a gradation. The gradation came back really good. We got a little bit of rain one day, so I went out and I drove on some of it, and there was no problems with it then. But maybe a lot of rain would be different. But I have no reason to question it. I guess at this point, with gradations like that. So. So next up for me, long story short, I ran into Dave Halversma probably a month ago or so, and we were talking about the trail and whatnot. He kind of talked about someplace he had been in the meantime, and long story short, he had the neat idea of a boardwalk out around the phase 4 would be, I guess, and I did, like, oh yeah, that'd be kind of neat, whatever, and I ran into a member of something to do with the trail stuff for the city, and we kind of got talking, and I passed that idea along, and we talked a little bit more, and I guess that one individual kind of thought that the idea of a boardwalk might be kind of neat out there, and we do have some old bridge planking. So I said I would talk to the board about it, and if that's something the city would want to do someday, would you be open to donating that bridge planking to them if they wanted to incorporate that somehow?
I'm kind of familiar with part of that discussion
Okay.
with trails and so forth. In fact, even on Casey Jones Trail, of course, even though this isn't part of Casey Jones Trail, so same group of people. And from where the Three Maidens are at and those restrooms are at there, there's a gap in the trail there because of that low area going over towards Playmore Curve. So that's the area that they're talking about, how
Right.
that lays so low in there. Of course, now with that nice trail that we've got, then going around Indian Lakes, and now it's tied in up by the Votech coming back down past Good Sam and past back into town on Hiawatha. So that's the incentive behind this. So it would really be nice to be able to tie it into a complete loop and
Right. It also might help with some of the permitting, because depending how they did it, there might be less fill in the wetlands.
Yep.
So that might help with permitting for that stuff. I don't really see any downside to donating that bridge planking.
it's surplus for us. We don't really
Yeah,
have a use for it.
it's I'm sure if we tried to auction it off, I'm sure somebody would buy it. I don't know how much we'd get for it, but someone with a neat artistic mind or whatever, I'm sure could do something neat with it. That's not me, but
This would include that metal bridge that the DNR gifted us?
that was my next thing. Like, I thought, well, I don't know, maybe if they wanted to paint that up, maybe they could do something neat with that too. I don't know. I just don't think it's big dollar stuff we'd be giving up here,
And we don't have any capital invested in this. That bridge was the state that we got
Correct.
from the state anyway. And the same thing with this bridge plank. It's already been used. It's been depreciated out. It's used stuff, right? The bridge planking.
Yeah, it was demoed bridge material.
Yeah.
We have another one coming up by Holland that's wooden. I
Right.
said,
So we've got no out of pocket here at all. This is all just surplus stuff. So
right, we did not buy it, but technically we could probably sell it for something.
But I like the concept of the support for the trail
Yes.
system and the community involvement and the cooperation between us and the city and the trail people. I certainly like the idea.
And they might not have any interest in it. This is very,
Right.
I wasn't officially contacted by like the trail committee or whatever, this is just one individual that has some type of involvement with it. I wasn't sure.
And it's right on the edge, of course, of the national park boundary line, so exactly where it would lie on there, if it would be south of the boundary line or on the north side. And I know the park is involved in this as well, too, and they also are promoting the idea of that walking trail, because it obviously enhances what they do out there at the monument, so.
It's just being near, the permitting would be tough regardless.
Right.
So if this helps facilitate that, it'd probably be
Exactly.
worthwhile.
Right.
So I mean, if nothing else, we could just hang on to that material for now, and if that's something they want to do, give it to them later, or.
Or should we take action at this point on it? Because I certainly.
I don't know if we need to take any action. I just, we talked about selling that bridge.
Yeah.
But if you think there's a possibility we might want to give that for the trail, I'll just say we're hanging on to it until we know what's going to happen with that. And,
Just let them know that it's potentially available if they desire.
Yep, I can do that.
Very, very much in support of that.
Okay, I will do that.
Okay?
All right. Next up, I have some maintenance updates. We did have, we had a driver have an accident with a pup. It was just swerved in a ditch, the pup tipped over. It bent the frame, so of course it damaged the trailer. Fortunately, nobody got hurt, but it actually totaled the trailer. Talked with the insurance company. They're willing to, they're going to pay us out for it. And they're willing to let us buy the damaged pup back for $1,090, and I would really like to do that because the axles are good on it yet, the tires are good on it yet, there's probably some other parts on it yet, and then I think when we're done with that, we just haul the rest in for scrap iron. So I guess that's my plan with that.
You need a motion for that?
I don't know. But
Chairman?
Do a motion for it.
Sure.
I'd like to make that a motion.
And I will second.
I mainly just wanted to make sure everyone was up to speed on
Any
what I was doing
discussion or
with that.
questions?
Was the truck damaged at all as well, too? Did the truck go in the ditch, too, or just the pup?
Just a pop.
Yeah. And it wasn't, so it wasn't that the bucket was up and it tipped over.
Correct.
It was driving
just
down the road.
it
and
slid
got
off
on
the edge of the
shoulder.
road and
Yeah, sure.
So
Let's get over.
And the only other information we can add to this is that, once the insurance got it, it was gonna be turned into scrap anyway.
Right, yeah, no.
So getting it back to us. to
Rims,
use
tires,
it-
axles are worth $1,000. You bet.
Oh, yeah, that's less, yeah.
yeah, half the tires,
Yep.
are worth probably $2,000 with the tires on it, and then we got axles and some other stuff. So pretty easy decision to me, but I wanted to bring that.
And the tailgate, I think tailgate, you might be able to reuse that again.
I think that'll be
sometime.
good yet, but I'm not sure. We'll see. But if that's sprung, if nothing else, we'll just pile our scrap iron in there till it's full, and then we'll throw it on the whole thing on a trailer and haul it in. So
Any other questions? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
okay. Next up will be just our monthly maintenance report. Then the first round of shoulder mowing is complete. We've been working on spraying and graveling outside of that. And then the next month on our short list would be the shoulders on County Road 18 and County Road 9. We're gonna freshen up some paint on some stop bars, and then we have some culvert work to do. Had a culvert separation in our County Road 56. That's fairly common. We run into multiple of those every year, but there ended up being a pretty big bump in the road, and the culverts just kind of moved apart and gravel started falling down inside them. And luckily, we're paving that road next year, so usually it works the other way. Like, it'll do that after we pave it, but so I'm pretty pleased with the timing of that one. But so outside of that, I guess that's all I have, unless you have questions for me.
I have one question. Where they put the lift on through Edgerton and stuff, are you gonna come back and put some gravel on the field approaches? one guy called me and he says he's got 2 of them in his field and he wants to know if he has to do it or if the county's gonna do that.
Was this right east of town? Because I know we have some, we're gonna add some black dirt ourselves, unless they did that already, but.
No, he's talking gravel on his field drives.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
They raised the road up a couple inches.
we'll take care of it, but specifically, do you know where it's at so I can?
On where you went through Edgerton. And
Yep.
There's only a couple field drives there. Rest are all streets and stuff.
Oh, so where the houses are on the north side of the road?
South
field that-
of that. Field
Okay.
drives on the south side of the houses. No, there's only a couple there. I figured they got overlooked or something.
Okay, so what happened there, we need some black dirt in some spots, and instead of paying an outrageous premium to have the contractor bring in some equipment for doing that, we said, no, we'll just do it ourselves, it'll be way cheaper. So
It's on the list.
yeah, we didn't do any shouldering, we didn't have the contractor do any out there, we'll take care of it, so we'll get those driveways too.
I'll get back to him then.
Yep.
On that.
Any other questions for Nick?
No.
All right, thank you.
Otherwise, I'll be back for my budget stuff later then, so,
Good.
all right.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
And Jason? Good morning.
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 Well, I can fly solo, but I do bring some bosses along with me.
They keep a good eye on you.
Yeah, that's right. They got my back, literally.
Good morning.
Morning, Rod.
Well, thank you for letting me invade your territory again another year. I appreciate it. It's despite the situations that we've dealt with, it really is nice to be back into these venues with the county commission. So thank you much. And like in the past, what I'll do is I'll go through our audit for the prior year and touch base with some of our activities for last year and this year. And if you have any questions, please let me know. So earlier I had staff send a electronic version of our audit.
I've got the handout here, and I do have the full audit in my packet here. You
Okay.
need to show that?
I can reference some page numbers to it, but I don't have to. I can walk through it. So, it's a fairly big audit, and trust me, I'm not going to go through all this. I'm only going to focus on 3 pages. So, our audit for 2020 was performed by Abdo Ike Myers out of Mankato. They've done a wonderful job. This, I believe, is their 4th year that we've had them. On page 11 and 13, that's where the firm has rendered their opinion for the 2020 audit, and it has come back an unmodified report, or very fair and clean opinion, so that's good. I'm going to start on page 16 on the table there. On page 16 describes our net position of our organization. The total assets as of the end of the year, December 31st, was $96,544,151. That's just slightly over a 1.5% increase over 2019. The liabilities as of the end of the year was $39,417,000. That's a 0.3% decrease. And Lincoln Pipestone carried $9,252,000 in unrestricted that we use for operating obligations and rate stabilization. And although this is probably the 2nd or maybe even 3rd year on this table, we have deferred inflows and outflows, and that's all pertaining to our para. So we're still learning and integrating this para thing into our world. So the total net position as of the end of the year was $57,624,202. That's an increase of over $1.5 million, or roughly about 2.8%. And I'll allude to more of it pertaining to a lot of our capital improvement projects. On page 17, there's a table and a graph there, and that describes our revenues. In 2020 is the end of the year, we had $9,894,000. That's an increase of just under $900,000 or 10%, but that's mostly from capital grants.
17, I think.
The total operating expenses for the year was $8,340,000. That's an increase of just under $500,000 or 5.7%. Lincoln Pipestone always funds depreciation. We show it as expenses in our audit, but any grants or money from hookups is shown as or not as operating income, but as equity inflow. So I always make note of that every year. Flipping to the top page of 18, our capital assets, we had $69,484,000. That's an increase of 2.7% in our system investments. And you can see under the bullet points at the top of the page there, those are some of the projects that we used, or we finished up actually, and I'll touch base more on that. The Verdi pump station, roughly about $3 million. We had a 12.5-mile pipeline from Tyler to Russell. We did some add-ons. I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. We had a true-up cost with Lewis and Clark, and of course we had the last portions of our AMR project, our automatic meter read project for our system.
What's GSR?
What's that?
What's GSR by the Verdi pump station?
Yep, so GSR is an acronym referring to ground storage reservoir.
Okay.
So at Verdi, we put in 2 tanks, 2 blue silos, and they hold 1 million gallons. So that has definitely, that storage has changed how we manage that site. So even during the drought, so that's been helpful.
You didn't have that before?
No, we had a small ground storage cement tank, I believe 250,000 gallons. It was relatively small, so this is quite a bit of more storage there.
Sure.
So similar to the tanks we have at Edgerton, just a slightly smaller at Edgerton. So. The undepreciated cost of the assets of the system as of the end of the year was $119,135,382. That's an increase of over $6 million since 2019, and that's all due to our capital improvement projects. The depreciation on those assets was roughly a little over $3 million, and depreciation includes distribution of some pumps and towers and buildings. On the on the bottom of page 18, we have a short little table there talking about the total outstanding debt. Revenue bonds outstanding as of the end of the year was $36,782,000. The total indebtedness for Lincoln Pipestone decreased just slightly over $500,000 in 2020. That was due primarily to our board being rather aggressive in refinancing, and we did have some bonds that mature. I did look back in prior audits dating back to 2016, and I was surprised to learn that Lincoln Pipestone has either paid off or paid down through refinancing opportunities over $12 million in that time. So that kudos to this board and how they approach the debt. So. And because of our projects with rural development and the funding, we did spend over $750,000, so we had to do a single audit with them, and they came back unmodified or clean as well. And the proceeds as of the end of the year was roughly $3,223,000 in grant proceeds. So that's a very quick 57-page overview of the audit. For the activities, we connected 53 new customers throughout our system, our 10-county system. That's right in the ballpark. The last 5-6 years, we're in that 40 to 60 hookups per year range, and without being in an expansion. Of those 53 new hookups, we had 45 residential hookups, we had 5 livestock hookups, and 3 office buildings connect. In Pipestone specific, we had 5 new connections, and of which 2 of those are assessed on the tax rolls. We have now completed, as of July and August this year, we are wrapping up our multi-phase, multi-capital improvement projects. So it seems like we've been in projects for many years. But these projects have included 2 connections with Lewis and Clark, new pump station at Edgerton, new pump station at Verdi, 12 and a half miles of pipeline across the Tyler Russell area, 22 miles of pipeline coming up to the Edgerton site. Scada system upgrades, we're finally finishing that up. That's a massive undertaking because that's taking all of our communications and controls at all of our facilities. I believe we have 38 facilities throughout our 10-county area, all managing and monitoring that. So that was a big undertaking for our staff. And we also had some money left over to do some upgrades at our Lincoln pump station, a small one up on the ridge south of Lake Benton. So that there was a bottleneck there, so we did some improvements there with some extra funding and made that happen. So we're wrapping all that up, and then we're getting right back on the saddle again. And I'm going through RD Apply to get some funding for a north water source. So Pipestone County was one of them, along with other counties, helped support that endeavor for finding a new water source on the north side of our system. Right now, we currently have a moratorium in our Burr service area. So we're looking for, we did get, because of the support, we did get $5.75 million from the state. So that's ready and waiting. We are pursuing some rural development funding. We also have put in for WIF dollars, and I hope timing is impeccable, that with water infrastructure funding from the federal level comes down and sees that we have a project ready and waiting, which is a nice little segue into this Arpa funding. So the American Relief Plan Act. We're a public entity, but we won't get any funding direct. But counties and cities and townships do. So I've been on the gypsy bandwagon here promoting to say, if you get funding, be creative, work with us, work with cities, other rural water systems, if they happen to be in your area, and try to secure the funding here in the county to help water infrastructure needs. That could come in various forms. I've had some creative people in these discussions. Some could maybe possibly funnel it through Lincoln Pipestone to get the plant or distribution lines or whatever up and running, or it could come into a opportunity for customers that are on the fence or don't, with the drought, maybe are suffering from well issues and helping them out, maybe connect to us. For Pipestone County, there might be an opportunity that Lincoln Pipestone has in their long-range capital improvement plan to still resurrect the North Holland well field and get that portion of our treatment plant up and running again. We did not abandon that well field. So what happened was when we had to shut the RO down, our 2 primary production wells at North Holland and 2 of them at our South Holland, or the main well field, we had to shut down because of nitrates. Okay. Well, we didn't give them up. We're not relinquishing them back to the DNR or anything. We're just putting them on hold for now and not using them in production. But the anticipation long-term is to somehow get them back up. Because we have a facility there that had 2 treatment processes. Now we're down to 1, and we need to focus on that because there's continued growth all the time. So we're hoping that maybe one avenue is the funding that the state gave to Lewis and Clark. When the feds give that back to Lewis and Clark to repay the states, the concept is that the Joint Powers Board representing the Lewis and Clark, so the 4 entities, us, Worthington, Laverne, and Rock County, may consider going after that funding. We're hoping to secure that before it goes back into the general coffers, and do something with that here in Pipestone County. So thought I'd throw that tidbit out there for the commissioners to consider that, what we can do with ARPA funding, even down to the township level. So. And sitting next to me is Commissioner Sprunk and,
No,
oh, sure.
You'd mentioned that some of the citizens, and if they got problems with their private wells, then you might have help with them getting hooked into rural water. So would that be a grant or would that be a loan program, do you know?
So, yeah, that's something, this concept's been floating around. Actually, it started with a couple of townships up in Lacaparo area, and they thought, it seemed like they were going to parlay their funding to the city of Canby for an event center or something. And so we talked about that, and then they came up with the concept of, maybe we should provide a grant to any citizen within their township to help with some of the cost of hooking up to us.
Because it's a substantial investment for property owners to hook in.
Yep.
Whereas you go back in history, back when you started, that was grant programs, and I don't believe it was a nominal hookup fee originally.
$5,000.
Was the original one, yeah, and then, so yeah, if you could develop that into a grant for the citizens, that would be terrific.
Yep.
Because there are a lot of marginal wells out there.
So keep talking. When that funding comes down, I don't know if the county has received their first allocation. I believe one of the townships I met with that day, they actually received the letter and they opened it up in front of me and said their first round of payments were coming. So that's when we spurred that conversation. So not to say that shifting money toward another purpose was wrong. It just, if we can keep it for water, wastewater, or broadband infrastructure locally, then that would be a great incentive. So trying to think outside the box.
The current hookup fee for citizens is that over 15 now, or what is the rate now?
Yeah, so the current residential connection fee is $16.5. That's been that way for probably 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, at least, yeah.
We haven't changed it. We've looked at it, the board has looked at it quite frequently, and we're probably need to consider raising it, but we know that balance.
Yeah.
So, a grant program would be a great incentive for people that are considering to hook up to us.
16.5 is just the hookup, it's not the extra money for the pipe to get to where it has to go?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So within our hookup of 16.5, you're allocated right now 1,500 feet.
1,500.
Okay? We are having difficulty. I heard the comment earlier about infrastructure. We are having difficulty securing pipe. First it was resins, and now it's petroleum products. And so I don't know how long 1,500 feet will last in that. I'm hoping that things will correct itself. So.
The cost has gone up dramatically on the pipe also.
Yes.
Therefore, the hookup fee could change, or the amount of feet we throw in.
Yep. And my understanding from a vendor is that for a while they actually quit making PVC, which is primarily our pipe product, and retooled to make ductile iron only. And that you see that more often in the cities and less so much for rural systems. So hopefully they'll change. So, and lastly, Commissioner Sprunk here, he got approved by all 10 counties, so he's going to serve another 4-year term for portions of Pipestone County. So, any other questions?
I have a question. Edgerton Town hooked up to Lincoln, or Lewis and Clark, excuse me. Is Lewis and Clark running out of water? Why is Edgerton restricting water right now?
So, because of the drought, everything is stepped up on monitoring, even across the border. All of Lewis and Clark's members had been taking as much as they could, and they had gotten into a realm of realizing what they could produce.
So there is a limit to how much Lewis and Clark can push out also?
As of now, yes, but there's expansion going on, and there's some new wells. They have a collector well, so a big hole is about as big as this with lots of appendage laterals coming out, and that should really help as far as producing water. So we had to do, the beauty of Lincoln Pipestone is we have redundancy, and that's a big term in our world, having Lewis and Clark plus Osceola water source and Holland, we have the ability to manage water. So when Lewis and Clark called us up and said, you might want to consider dialing down, and we had been taking slightly over our allocation because it was available at the time. But at the time, but come June, they said, we need all you members to back off a little bit. So what we did was we moved Osceola water into our system more readily. And so we have that ability to balance that, so that's been good. Now, we have called all of our communities that we serve and asked that if you have watering restrictions or some type of ordinance on hand, to please consider enacting them.
Use it.
Yep. And I think that's one of our steps that we need to do to comply with a drought situation. When they ramped up to a higher level, the DNR has contacted us saying, you need to start enacting this. Fortunately, we had already reached out to our member communities. We also reached out to high-end users and some developments that use water excessively for your lawn irrigation. So, yeah, great question though.
You'd mentioned that Edgerton was maybe hooked up to Lewis and Clark. They are a member of our system. They're not a member of Lewis and Clark.
Edgerton is not?
So Edgerton is a member of Lincoln Pipestone Rural Water. We happen to provide Lewis and Clark water that runs right past town. We can supply them with primarily Lewis and Clark water. Yep. So the city is not a member of Lewis and Clark, but Lincoln Pipestone is. Yep.
So what would it take to get the Holland plant going again?
You can talk about the pilot study that we did, 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah, so back in 2013, we did a pilot study called Biota, which uses naturally occurring bacteria in the ground. We found out which type can reduce nitrates. And we took one of our water sources from North Holland that we discovered was over 20 parts per million. 10 parts per million is the federal level.
Okay.
And we brought it to the plant. We gave this bacteria some food in the form of acetic acid, and they converted that nitrates from 20 parts per million to 0.
Wow.
So it was a methodology that hadn't really been used too much up in the northern climes, the Minnesotas, but most readily available in the southern, warmer water temp makes these bacteria act. They were accusing it being Norwegian bacteria. I took offense to that because of my heritage, but nonetheless, it worked effectively, but it was a little bit slower than what they had seen. So that is still that process is actually still considered by our board as possible long range project.
And whatever that process is can be ramped up to a scale to do enough volume to make it worthwhile?
It would definitely, we'd have to look at it, but it would definitely help at that site. When we shut the ROs off, we lost between 40 to 60% of our production capability there. And 4 of the 8 wells are now shut off. So now that puts the pressure on the 4 that are in production. And actually, just as of this last month, one of those wells we were pumping into the screen, so we were getting air. So we had to do some manipulating. But with Lewis and, so everything's very complex. With Lewis and Clark coming up toward that southern Pipestone County area, we reduced that Holland service area to a fraction of what it used to be. Remember, Holland used to serve all the way to the Iowa border. Now it does not. So if we can get that up and running, then we have more redundancy, more opportunities.
So any idea of what that would cost?
I think at the time back then it was another $3 million, and our board decided, you know what, our constituents are already paying on a treatment process that we have to shut down, and timing happened to be the best at that time. We were looking at all these alternatives, including Biota, but the state gave the funding to Lewis and Clark, And our board took an aggressive approach and got a second connection at Magnolia to bring water up to Edgerton. So really timing and the state stepping in really dictated how that went. If that wouldn't have gone, who knows, we could have been in a biota situation right now. So.
And where are you at with new sources? I know you've mentioned that earlier, but, or how do you even go about finding new sources?
A lot of exploration, with a lot of costs attributed
So
to
is
it.
it just random drilling, basically,
No, there is rhyme or reason. Our hydrologists and even help with from the DNR can navigate where some good quality water or potential, I should say, is probably the key word. And then we do pump tests or test drilling to find out if it's ample source and the quality is workable and things like that. So
You can talk about the wells we acquired in South Dakota.
yes, so in Verdi, our board decided to expand the footprint. So we have originally 5 production wells on the Minnesota side, and it is positioned right on the state line. Here in 2012, 2014, we acquired a portion of ground on the South Dakota side, so it basically extended our well field. We have 2 production wells over on the South Dakota side, and we have a whole different independent permit with state of South Dakota on that side for 200 million gallons a year, plus a reserve of another 200 million gallons, on top of our allocation on Minnesota. So by expanding into South Dakota with 2 different water philosophies, Western water law kicks in as soon as you throw the baseball across the fence. So we maximize that on the South Dakota side and have the ability to manage not only physically the water, but actually the permitted with the 2 states.
So is it easier to do it in South Dakota?
As a whole, yes. Yep.
Is it the same aquifer or 2 different aquifers that?
Same aquifer. So just think of, we took a bowl this big, now we expanded the bowl, and we put 2 straws in, but it's the same bowl.
Another question then on this pilot program then. So then the concept is that you would, with this pilot program, you would go back to using your reverse osmosis, but you'd have to have retention ponds to hold the water, to treat the water before you discharge it. Is that how that would work?
Likely not. I believe it's unfortunate because reverse osmosis creates the best quality water. But the problem is the discharge.
Yeah.
And our board investigated that on different avenues for that discharge, ponding being one, irrigation, trucking, reclassifying a ditch, none of which panned out. Even the concept of, high nitrate water, that would be great for somebody with irrigation pivot. Well, it's not the nitrates, it's the salts. And the reverse osmosis pulls out the salts, the minerals. And so now if you were to use a pivot to eliminate that, well, now you're changing the soil complexity of that under that pivot.
So the problem with the discharge isn't the nitrates, it's the minerals?
It's the minerals, yeah. So in a low year, during that study, the DNR was running toxicity tests. We always discharge to the stream. We use dilution to help with that, but they felt that in a drought year, possibly this year, that the water coming in would create an anoxic condition. So the minerals would be taking away the oxygen when it mixes with the stream and creating an environment for flora and fauna to not thrive because of the lack of oxygen. So our board decided, you know what, it's unfortunate, we didn't like it, but we changed the way MPCA handles things, and we got funding from MPCA to solve a water problem. And that was, part of it was connecting to Lewis and Clark. So, long answer for a short question, will RRO work? No, unless we can find another process to concentrate that discharge even further and dispose of it properly. But as of right now, the best alternative is likely like a bacteria where it can take away the nitrate. It doesn't give you better quality.
How would you implement that bacteria then, before it goes through your processing?
So the bacteria would be introduced likely on the front end, and then we would add chlorine
Raw water before you.
Yeah, to eliminate the bacteria, so that doesn't get into the system, so. But there's a lot of promise in it.
That process saves a fair amount of water too. The RO, wasn't the discharge about 20% of the volume?
Yeah.
Yes, yep.
Or we'd save that water too.
You don't get a better quality product in the end because you're not using RO, you're just eliminating nitrates and not really taking out the minerals. So if it has naturally occurring manganese or iron, it'll still be in there. So we may have to run that through a different process. But these are things that we're looking for in tackling for the future. So long answer for a funding question, but I appreciate it. And thank you very much. Dan and I got to experience a We Are Water festival, and that was fun. And I learned that we had a water tasting contest, and I was not aware of this. 3 of the 6 sites happened to be Lincoln Pipestone derived water sources, and I guess the winning taste in this taste contest was from our Holland water source.
Was that sample number 5 on the table by any chance? That was my favorite.
I think it was sample 5.
Yep.
Yep.
No, and the We Are Water program, for you're not familiar, it's a grant that Jody Wacker had then through the library, and this program's going on yet. So it goes through the end of this month yet, I believe. So we encourage everybody to participate.
Yep.
in that.
Oh, it was fun. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle?
Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for having us today. I'm Michelle Jensen. I'm the Family Services Manager at United Community Action Partnership.
I'm Shelley Rickus with United Community Action Partnership. I'm a self-sufficiency case manager.
And we're here today to talk to you about the Family Homeless Prevention and Assistance Program. That is a grant that United Community Action receives through a competitive RFP process. And our agency was just awarded $919,000 through that process to provide emergency housing services in UCAP's 9 core counties. And then additionally, we cover the 4 SMOT counties for emergency housing. The reason that we're here today, other than to share some information about the program with you, is that we have due diligence items that we have to provide to Minnesota Housing in order to provide this program in your county, and part of that is getting a resolution from the county board allowing us to provide the service here in Pipestone County. There is no cost to the county for that. We just need your permission to do it. And, you know, over the last number of years since UCAP has been providing emergency housing services in Pipestone County, we have seen the need increase. And just to give you kind of a idea of what that looks like, currently the state of Minnesota is administering the Rent Help Min program. And there are 21 households currently with applications in process from Pipestone County requesting $65,000 in assistance. $54,200 of that is rent, and $10,800 of that is other utilities like water, sewer, gas, electric, those types of things. And a little bit of a breakdown of those families requesting assistance are that 58% of them are BIPOC or Black, Indigenous, and people of color. 33% are experiencing recent unemployment, and 38% of those households have minor children in the household. So Shelley is going to let you know some of the services that are provided through the FHPAP program.
We provide case management, budgeting, assistance accessing mainstream resources like SNAP, MNsure, landlord and tenants' rights and responsibilities, rents and utility deposits, past due rents and utilities, transportation assistance, which could be gas vouchers, car repair, etc., and undersigned assistance, which is application fees, potentially some work boots, clothing, helping them, get what they need to go to work.
And one of the other needs that we've seen here in Pipestone County too is we were just notified this week that Pipestone Salvation Army is out of funding until October 1st. So that removes a source of assistance for people who are struggling. And as we've seen the need increase in Pipestone County, we're now looking at putting a staff person over in this county, starting out maybe one day a week and seeing where we go there. But they would be able to not only provide assistance for this particular program, but could provide assistance applying for Rent Help Min and any of the other emergency housing programs that we have through UCAP. So that is really all I have prepared today. If you have any questions, we're sure happy to answer them.
And you would do that through Family Services if you put somebody here, or where would it be located?
Well, we don't know. We are exploring space options currently.
And Mr. Chair, I guess that's the question I would have too, is understanding how the various agencies work so they don't overlap. So, because this is part of UCAP, and you already mentioned, yes, we are part of SMOC as well, Southwest Minnesota Opportunity Council, and they also do housing assistance there.
No.
I know 2 years ago, the housing assistance, they turned that over to UCAP there.
Yeah.
But my other question is, we also, through Southwest Health and Human Services, and we are part of Southwest 18 Mental Health Consortium. So is there a duplication there? Because I know that we have housing support through that as well, or is that part of your program? How do these different agencies, who serves who?
So one of the ways that our Southwest 18 County Continuum of Care tries to assure that there isn't duplication of services is that all of these service providers come together on a monthly basis. We talk about the needs and who's doing what. We work really closely with our partners, so there's no duplication. Yeah, so like if we look at Southwest Health and Human Services, we may have someone who comes in for a request for assistance, and we are talking with the county and saying, this request is more than we can do. Is there a way we can partner? And sometimes we partner our resources, sometimes they help, sometimes we help. Housing supports, we're referring to usually the consortium, if they have openings in their programs. And then we also, as a HUD mandate, have to maintain what's called a priority list for homeless individuals. And so we do a coordinated entry assessment. UCAP is the entry point for most individuals unless they're youth or domestic violence victims. And they all go on this list, and we have weekly calls so that we're going through that list, determining the highest priority families and what programs they would fit in. So it's complicated, but everyone is of the same mindset that we do not want to be duplicating services. So we may actually put someone in housing and then pass that household off to like the mental health center to provide ongoing services.
So is it an efficient way of doing so? Basically, UCAP is a cog in the wheel, along with Southwest Mental 18 Health Consortium. So we're not having a duplication of administrative costs. We're not driving up our cost of administering this program to the people. This is all as a coordinated effort.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That was my concern. It's like there's so many different agencies to wrap my mind to how these all work. So as long as it's coordinated and we're not wasting money with duplication of administrative services, and at the same time that people are truly in need or getting the services they need, that is terrific. That's the goal.
Yeah, we work really hard, like I said, with our partners to make sure that those things aren't happening. We are constantly talking with them if we have common clients. If we see that someone comes in that may have a need that isn't in our, kind of our lane, but has a housing need in maybe needing more mental health assistance, we're making those referrals to that agency because they're the ones who are best suited to serve those particular individuals.
Thank you.
Yep.
Are people with a prior felony record able to get housing assistance?
Yes, if we can find landlords that are willing to rent to them.
Okay, so it has to be just a private landlord situation, and then they would still go through your agency?
Yeah, we have a continuum of services from emergency housing to permanent supportive housing. So we do have actually some clients with felonies that are in a permanent supportive housing program because they have a disability and were also homeless prior to entry. And we've been able to find landlords that will work with them. A lot of times it's because they have a relationship with our agency and the case management services that we provide. You know, we're doing home visits, we're in that home on a regular basis, so we help, you know, make sure that the unit is being maintained. You know, ultimately, it's up to the client.
Right.
You know, but we try to provide all the support that they need.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for
Sure.
Michelle, been doing a lot of reading and trying to get my head wrapped around the ARPA funding, American Rescue Plan funding, and homelessness and needs of poor and things like that are very much a focus of that. Are you receiving any funding from that, or have received, or are you talking to anybody like counties and cities or the state, or is any of that money coming? Because we do have obviously funding here too, and homelessness in the county is an important thing, and that should be something we should be looking at too for possible funding ideas too. So I'm just trying to get an idea, wrap my head around, are you getting funding, is it helping you, that type of thing?
Yes, we have received funding. We received it through, oh goodness, I don't have that off the top of my head. But we have received funding for other programs within our agency as well. And we've gotten funding for emergency housing, some homeless assistance and rapid rehousing and prevention dollars that are administered through our agency. And then, of course, the Rent Help Men program. We don't administer that like we did with the COVID housing assistance program last fall, but we are a field partner. And so we did receive a grant from Minnesota Housing to help people access that program as well.
Okay. I do know that many of our larger counties in the state are focusing some of their ARPA dollars to homelessness and that type of thing too. So I just wanted to, see if any cities in the southwest area, cities or counties are reaching out, or you've talked to them about possibly getting funding to cover your shortfalls and that type of thing to help with that. And, so be issues with that. I mean, we obviously have to make determinations of how we want to use the money, but this is something that is part of the program that is important and we should be looking at too, I think.
I know that the agency has recently put together a bunch of information and are going out and talking to counties. I'm not part of that group, so that's why I'm a little hesitant to give you a real solid answer, because I'm not part of that, but could do some more asking.
Well, if you talk to them, please have them reach out to me here. You've got my email, so have them get a hold of me. That would be great. And, we could certainly take a look at that too, because, obviously we want to keep the dollars in the county, and homelessness is an important part of it. But we don't want to duplicate services if it's already being funded either. So we want to make sure the dollars go to the right places, of course.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes.
Again, with that concept of not duplicating services, so I looked through the resolution, and so basically the resolution is for Pipestone agrees to support UCAP in its application then for the proposed homeless prevention assistance program. So I will move that resolution, as long as I understand correctly, we're not duplicating services here.
Correct.
Okay, I will make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
I would second the motion.
Okay, any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You could all have the chairman sign a copy of the resolution and give it to you right now.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you.
You bet. Want to take a short break?
Thank you.
I think we'll recess for a few minutes. And
Sounds good.
Okay, Kathy, you want to do your personnel quick?
Good morning.
Morning, Kathy.
I have a couple items for board approval this morning. One of them was in your packet ahead of time. It's advertising to hire for this position, and hope to get somebody in here early to mid-October. And then Carol can train with this individual for a couple months before she retires. So we do have a need to renew this agreement through the end of 2021. If she wants to leave slightly sooner, she can, but she has committed to be available through the end of the year if we need her. We would be looking to advertise for a 32-hour-a-week position. I guess that's kind of a slightly different request, but and just have the office continue to be closed to the public on Fridays. They may occasionally have educators in there working and stuff like that, but their normal business hours would remain Monday through Thursday. So I guess first of all, I need approval of the new PRO agreement. So we have that for PERA, and we can send that in to keep her going for another.
I'll make a motion to renew.
Yep, and I will second that motion.
Okay, any discussion?
The agreement then is between us and the union? Is that?
It's actually for para purposes, for her
Okay,
pension.
It's an agreement, so for the state, okay.
Yep.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then I guess I would need approval to fill the position as a 32-hour-a-week position, Monday through Thursday. If the
That, Mr. Chair?
Second.
And that would qualify for benefits and whatnot?
Correct, yes. This person would still get they'd get prorated vacation and sick accruals, so they still get that, and then they still get the full insurance benefits because it's over 30 hours per week.
It would be good to have somebody train with Carol.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, because it'd be hard to go in there not knowing.
There's a lot of knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And we'll bring Carol in before the end of the year.
Right.
So the board can recognize her for
Sure.
her service. So
How long has she been with us?
38 years, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah, so.
Just about her whole working career.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, any other questions? Not all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. The next item I have is I handed out a pay plan this morning with some highlighted wages. The sheriff's office has completed their sergeant recruiting. They did have 5 deputies apply, and they went through a process of writing a report, an interview, and what was the third thing? Just answering some questions, I believe, like a test. So they have selected Jeff Rowden as the new sergeant, and they actually have started him on training effective August 1st. If you remember, this was vacated by Paul Matthews. He is now the investigator. So we would like to make this effective August 1, and then this is our pay recommendation. Because he will be getting a step increase in a few months, we wanted to factor that into the increase plus like a 5% for a promotion. So we're looking at that step H on the new pay scale for him. So I would be seeking board approval of that.
Support. Make that a motion.
And I will second.
So that range is where the sergeant typically is on the point scale or whatever.
Yes, so the deputy range is that B24,
Mhm.
and the sergeant range is that B25.
Okay.
So then for clarification, so then we're adjusting the pay plan with this, or?
We're not adjusting the pay plan.
We're
We're
just
just
changing
adjusting his
categories.
his pay. Yeah. Yep, because he has a new job title. Since he's starting over and he doesn't get a step again until next year, we wanted to factor in this year's step that he'll be getting in a few months in the wage increase, so that's why
So it's
that's
the same pay plan, it was just we're changing him from one classification to a different classification.
correct.
Okay, any other questions? Not, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. And then my other personnel items are related to the auditor treasurer discussion, so I'll be back at 2:30 so we can go through that.
Before I let Kathy go too, and I realize this last year and a half has been crazy, so I really appreciate how you keep us informed with changes in personnel. And I'm hoping in the future that we might get a chance to see more of these faces as they come through. I know
Yeah,
Highway
we can
Department, we've got
start
some
doing that
changes
more
there,
again,
so
too.
I really like having an idea who's,
Who you're dealing with?
yeah, who our people are. I like to see them, so
Okay.
that's great.
Good.
Yeah, we can start scheduling them to come to the board to introduce themselves.
But at the
so.
same time, I don't want to put a burden on department heads by pulling people out of the field too, so you guys use your discretion on how it works best.
Some of them also work nights, and they're about this
Yes.
time, they're like totally snoozing after an overnight or two on some of the deputies, but
That's true, but yeah, we can
bring
start doing
pictures
that
if we
again.
couldn't have them.
Yeah.
Well, they can come in their PJs.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Nick?
Change folders.
Yep.
Got my big red pen, Nick. I do have some handouts here to give you too for his department.
What page are we starting on?
99, I'm thinking.
I knew it was towards the back.
Oh, my page numbers must not line up with you. Mine starts on 1. You must have got the whole thing. I must have
Yeah.
got just road and bridge.
Your own set of books?
I guess, but. I'll wait till those are handed out, and then I'll probably just start by going through my budget narrative and.
Yes, I
You
do.
want that? Okay.
Yep.
Think maybe.
Oh, I've got the other big one too. The most recent one.
Yep.
Got them all.
I put one in everybody's folder. Your box, I should say.
Everybody have anything? Should I get started then?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. To start off here, my proposed budget for this year's levy impact is $1,349,985. It actually represents a 5.8 increase over last year, which I really don't like how that looks, but if you can dive into it, it makes more sense. Last year, we were instructed to keep it as absolute low as we could because of COVID stuff, so we actually had a 2.4% decrease last year. So this 5.8% increase is based on my decrease last year. So then if you go and compare the 2022 to 2020, it's only a 3.2% increase, and that's over 2 years, so as bad as that number looks right now, I actually, if you kind of look at the big picture, I don't, I feel better about it, so. So that's a little bit of background on my increase percentage there. Some of the major things we're looking at would be a tractor and mower for $153,000. That's a roadside mower, not a lawnmower. Looking at replacing our 1980 backhoe. 'for $140,000. 'For 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 140,000. 1 We'd like to purchase an extended warranty for our Edgerton motor grader. That's $14,700. That's for 3 years. We'd like to replace our excavator for $230,000. A pup trailer that would replace the one that was damaged. We'd like a gutter broom attachment for our street sweeper. That'd allow us to get closer to the gutter, clean it out a little better. We use that on bridge decks too to keep those drains open. And then a plasma cutter for the shop. Our mechanic's really handy, and he's really good at machine stuff. So he's capable of doing a lot of work ourselves, so we don't have to pay a machine shop to do it and wait for them to have time to do it. So some other things that came up that we don't think is going to fit in the budget this year. A lawnmower for the shop, shouldering machine, a skid steer mill, another skid steer, door locks that run based off our ID cards, snow blower for the skid steer. I also didn't budget anything to upgrade our gravel roads, and I didn't budget anything for future county overlays, but we can use wheelage tax for that, and that's kind of the purpose of that. So we didn't budget anything to increase the reserves. My budget assumes sharing the sign tech with household hazardous waste and soil and water. And then at the bottom, we have a graph over the last 20 years. You can see the steady increase, I guess you call it, in maintenance costs. So with that being said, I guess that's my overview. Any fire away at the specific questions, and I'll do what I can. So,
Earlier this morning, we were talking about the contract for the field tile, drainage tile along the roads and so forth. And I realize that we're just looking at that now. It's not necessarily going to be a long-range plan, but I wonder if it does develop in a long-range plan, would we be better off buying our own trencher and trenching those in ourselves? Do you have the labor? Can you afford the man hours to do that? Would there be savings or not? And trenching it's hard on equipment. Those trenchers, you're fixing them all the time, I know.
We rented a trencher and we trenched some tile in, I believe on that Indian Lakes Road. We did that ourselves. I can't remember how long the stretch was, but I remember it taking a surprisingly long time to do.
It's tedious. I've done a lot of it.
Okay. But I think that was that was a really small trencher. You might have stood on it to operate it, not sit on it. I mean, that was about as small as it gets, but I could check into that, but I myself don't really know anything about tiling. Oh, well, I shouldn't say anything, but I know minimal about tiling, but I have no idea what they cost. I see a lot of farmers buy tile plows and put on their big four-wheel drive tractors.
That's assuming you have a big four-wheel drive tractor.
We don't, but we have a dozer. I don't know if that's big enough, but
probably not.
Well, and I don't know if you'd want to plow in this tile, or do you want to trench this tile in? Because you want to have, aggregate in there so you get the water flowing into it and so forth.
And if you're doing it on roads, it's a lot harder than doing it just through dirt.
Yep.
Right.
You gotta start with gravel and rocks first.
Yep, to get down to the dirt. And said trenchers, you're fixing them all the time. They're always.
Okay. Well, in talking with the people on these tile coats, they were all going to plow it. One of them was, I told to give 2 coats. He could coat it with or without. They got a boot that would insert the P-rock. So he asked which way we wanted it. Of course, there's more cost with P-rock. So I told him, well, just submit 2 coats. One with P-rock and then one without. And then we would decide which way we wanted to go.
But do we have any idea how effective the drainage is if you just put that clay back on top of the tile? You need to have that aggregate there so it'll drain.
Well, it's keeping the base dried out in the ditches. I called a township that had this done by one of these people I talked to, and it was plowed in, and that worked well. They were happy with it. So I think it works, but our County Road 15, that was trenched in. So,
Elmer Township has been talking about plowing one road, the one that leads to the Sprunk Seed Farm. It has it's a township road, and we can never get anybody to come and do it, They don't like to mess with tiling in a road either.
oh, really? Okay. Okay, well, I guess the three people I talked to sounded interested in doing the work.
Yeah.
If it fit, because there's times when it fit their schedule very well. I'm thinking like the end of the summer, right before harvest probably, farmers don't necessarily want their crop run down when it's right there,
But with a dry year, they're probably not gonna be as busy tiling.
Yeah.
And you certainly are aware as well with so much underground utilities that we've got out there, that's going to be a challenge because we had a lot of crossings.
So one thought, I guess, that comes to mind, this was a smaller contract. I didn't want to try something big. I thought, well, it makes sense to do something little to make sure that it works right, and then we'll decide if we want to make that big investment. If we did these two segments plowed in, we'd have a tiled or trenched road to compare it to. So then maybe we'd know if it's worth paying the extra money for trenching.
Sure.
So, plus then we could kind of see how it works and see if it's something we think we could maybe tackle ourselves, but that sound like a decent way to try it?
Yep, it does. Getting back to your budget proposal then, and a lot of equipment, you talked about the excavator as well too. How old is the existing excavator?
That's 18 years old. Well, it's 2003, yep. With a little over 5,000 hours. We've had to put some repairs into it. The one we'd like to trade for is a whole bigger size. We have that lowboy trailer now, so we can transport a bigger one, and we can do more things with the bigger one.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason too. It's getting old enough. It's starting to have some issues, but it's also the size increase we're looking at here, so we can do more ourselves.
I really like your approach, the self-sufficient. I like being able to do things ourselves, not relying on time. And I also know that to do the job, you got to have the right tools. And now to do the right tools, you got to have a big paycheck, or a big checkbook. So I know it's expensive. I hate spending that money on it. Yep, exactly.
It's tough looking at some of that stuff and how it goes up, and
it's scary.
I don't know what private people pay, but it seems like it's enough for us. I know the government contract treats us very well on pickups. What we pay for a pickup compared to what the private sector pays is.
Well, the same thing with the backhoe and so forth. I remember when I was at the REA, we were able to buy a backhoe for a fraction of what a commercial contractor was because we were an entity, a utility entity, because of the federal loans for REAs.
Okay.
The difference between what a contractor pays for equipment and what a governmental agency pays for equipment is just unbelievable.
It is. It's unbelievable.
So, so this is the deal price that we're getting? I mean, it would.
I didn't directly ask him, but we always.
Or is that just an estimate?
We always go off the government contract.
Right. So I mean, a private party would pay more than that.
Correct. Yep.
A lot of it, I think, is taxes.
Yeah, they pay a lot more than that.
Yeah.
I think the last pickup we bought, I think the governmental discount was like $10,000 or something like that on a pickup.
Right.
So we're talking 25% discount or whatever. And like, oh man, that was.
And you think it's similar on these type of vehicles?
I don't know. I mean, I know it's really big on pickups.
If it is, that's a pretty big number.
It is. You're right. Yeah.
And just to reiterate, obviously, we passed the budget, but that doesn't mean you've got an open checkbook.
Yeah, right. No, as always. So, yeah.
I guess I have a question about, I know we've talked about this for a number of years. about when the medical facility bonds payment goes away, which apparently it does this year, that we would maybe shift that money to like a road account, which we've never had one before, although we should have one. I mean, we basically don't levy for road construction per se. And,
We have,
but
it's,
not consistently.
no, not consistency. It's like when we know there's a project.
Right,
coming,
we'll throw a little something in
Yeah.
or whatever, but I mean, not on a regular basis.
Correct.
And it just seemed like this would be a good opportunity since it was already built into the levy to begin with.
It's just shifting it.
You're just shifting it, it wouldn't really change things much. And yet, at least it'd be a way to start having some consistent amount specifically for construction.
Yep, if we wanted to throw local money into our road system, I can budget for that, or would I budget for that, or would that go? in?
Yes.
Okay. Yep, I can do that.
Which one would that come out of? That'd be under construction? Use construction account, or does it not even show up in the?
I don't even think there's a line item right now, is there?
I don't think there
Under
is.
construction?
I have one, it's all state aid, but I don't know if it'd be the same or not. I'd have to think about that.
Okay.
I would think you'd want it in a separate for local,
Oh, I would think so, yeah.
so you could track your state money versus your local.
I suppose it'd come in on our,
Could put it under admin, I suppose, couldn't you?
it'd come in on our property tax though, wouldn't it? Like the,
Well, yeah. I
Yeah, we
mean,
would levy for it.
Yeah, we would levy for it because it'd be,
Let's figure $220,000 a year, because that's about what we're paying
Yeah.
for the
Right.
bonding, which is done now.
right.
Want to think about it and figure out where we can put it?
yeah, I can do that.
Or if we need an account, we can get with,
Wouldn't it be under road and bridge maintenance and somewhere?
I guess if we don't need an answer right now, it'd probably be best if I went back and I looked at this and thought about it a little bit more and make sure we get it set up right.
Sure,
So-
yeah.
Would it make sense to roll it into some of our other funds, like our aggregate tax and our wheelage tax, since how those are kind of earmarked for road improvements too? Would that be part of that same account, or would we want to keep those separate?
You'd want to keep it separate.
Wheelage tax, we keep separate, so we know,
Because you have to specifically say
Yes.
where you're spending that. Correct?
I think the local option sales tax, you have to dedicate that ahead of time if I remember right, but wheelage
Right.
tax can only be used for certain road things.
Right, but it'd be
And I
nice to
keep-
be able to say, oh, we used it on whatever, just so that the public knows.
And I do that.
Right.
And,
Because I know you've mentioned it here before.
yep, and I'll probably start bringing that up at the road and bridge hearing every year, like,
Have a slide on
perhaps
where
this
those
is.
funds have been
Yep,
used or,
this is our balance, this is how much we used last year, this is what we used it on, so.
right.
So how much is that, that hospital?
about 220,000.
So I should just put 220 in there every year for road construction for, so we would say supplement our state aid allotment with that is what you're thinking and try to catch up on, like, for example, our 4.7 million shortfall or whatever. And like I said,
Right.
a lot of that, there's a lot of different things that I think are going to play out in our favor. So I don't think it's going to be that bad, but still we can accelerate that and, help out quite a bit, so.
But when it gets to that point, though, we'd have to take specific action on continuing that, earmarking that money. It's not an automatic. The money we're spending on the debt right now, when that debt's retired, then we would have to take specific action then to continue that investment, that levy.
At that point, it would just be levy dollars, because there is no bond anymore. It would
Right.
just be an
The bond
annual
just
allotment.
ends.
It'd just be putting it in another.
You'd have a line item of 220,000 for local road improvement, or whatever you
So I
want to
mean,
call
the
it.
action we take will be just approving the budget as we normally do, because it'll just be included as part of it.
Levy in that, so.
Right. But it just seems like
Without adding anything.
it's a good time because you're just shifting it from now you don't have to pay that debt anymore. Now we are, going to use it for
Yeah.
something that we probably should have been levying for all along.
But if in a couple of years, all of a sudden, we see another hiccup like we did a few years ago with our state aid.
Like if your state aid dried up, yeah,
So
maybe
then
you
we'd
would
be
cut
looking at
back
that.
or
We might
something.
say we have to cut the levy again, so it's,
How it works.
Then-
that might be where we cut that from. So again, we're not committing to
Oh,
absolutely
right.
putting that
Right,
200,000 in.
No,
No, it's not like a bonding, not like we borrowed money and we're paying back on a loan.
It's kind of like deciding whether you want to prepay or not prepay, you know, like we talked about earlier.
Right.
You have the option to make changes as things go, and
Yep. But just want to clarify that it wasn't an automatic that you're always going to get that 200,000. It's going to be levied.
yeah, so in my mind, I'd put that 220 in every year, and at this meeting, when we're revisiting this, considering how the county's sitting, we might
We might
peel
have-
back
might
on
have
that.
to trim that if we lose state aid or some other things, or
Right.
some other expenses come up.
Right, or if he needed to put it somewhere else for some other project some year, so be it, you know, but,
yeah, if the courthouse needed something or whatever.
yeah.
Where does your wheelage tax show up at? Is that in
The only thing I
the
would,
13 account?
I just filed
That
past it.
goes right to you, doesn't it? I can't remember. exactly.
Page 108, Steve.
340,
On one
50,
way.
15.
Top line on page 108.
I guess my only comment to the whole,
Okay,
revisiting it
construction account, okay.
revisiting it every year would be, if you're, some years it's the full 220, some years it's less than that, it's gonna make my levy increases look really erratic,
Choppy.
which I don't mind as long as you all know what's going on there, but, just something to keep in mind if you do it that way.
And the intent is to be able to keep that earmarked, just with the realization that there could be extenuating circumstances.
Is it, I'm not sure how that all works. Is it easier to put it in like the general fund instead and keep tabs on it? Throw it towards roads then, or not so much?
I think that with the treasurer's office help, that money could go into a dedicated account, just like we have for ambulance, that type, where we build it,
Yep.
keep building up.
Because then my levy would stay
Right.
Yeah,
more normal, if you want to call it
But you would
that.
still, you would still have it in here, it would still has to show up as a line item, but it would just be where it's put.
Oh, well,
Just going into the big hole of the general fund, it's actually pulled out, and when we got the reports, you'd see, here's what we have in each different
Yeah.
dedicated fund that the board has approved.
And I like those dedicated funds, especially when we have the intent to let that reserve build for bigger projects coming up,
Right.
instead of being part of the general fund, because then it kind of gets lost in the muddle.
so I would still,
It's actually transferred.
Everything.
You know.
so I would still levy for it though. Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
yes, you still
Okay,
would.
that's
yeah.
fine.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll do it that way, just, yeah, if it fluctuates, we just have to keep in mind that it's gonna make my levy impact numbers look kind of goofy, but.
So, I mean, obviously this year, it'll look like you have a big increase.
It's gonna look enormous, but.
Right, but that's okay, because I mean,
It's, yeah, to me, it's easily explainable, you know, like, I think, to me, 5.8 looks bigger definitely than I'd like to see, but it's only 3.2 over 2 years ago, actually, so it's only big because we
Right.
dialed it back last year to try to help with COVID.
And the nuance of that is not really all that critical to the general public as far as years having a big increase or not, as long as we understand why that increase is there. So it's
Correct.
not like you have people saying, well, boy, your budget sure went up.
Yeah, and, you know, the property tax they pay, it's not really gonna
or if
go as
anyone
crazy as
does
this-
notice, they'll say, I hope you're paving our road.
Oh, or that, yeah. Yeah,
Saving for a big project.
Right.
yeah.
But I mean, my gosh, you know, look around. I mean, obviously, the state's not going to fund roads adequately because they've been fighting that off for
forever.
decades. And even the federal package now, frankly, is kind of an embarrassment when, even for the 1 trillion package, only 11% is for roads and bridges. Really? I mean, with all the things that are falling apart, that's the best you can do? I mean, it just seems shameful to me, but.
When you go out for funding sources for various road projects, whether it be a state or a federal grant, they never come back and look at what your reserves are when they determine whether or not they're going to give you money for a particular road, do they?
I don't know if that could happen or not, but it doesn't. I mean, we get our allotment every year based on the formula that comes from essentially from the gas
It's
tax.
got nothing to do with cash on hand.
Correct. The federal stuff, as a district, we get so much money a year. We track it, but it's unofficial. It's just a way of making sure it's getting kind of fairly spread among the different counties, you know. So that really doesn't have anything to do with it either. Then I think about our township bridges, which are county maintained roads, are technically township roads. We just flip the bill on them. That's how we get access to some of that other money. If that account is drained and we apply for a project, and go on the waiting list, sometimes if they have extra special town bridge funds, they might throw us some. So that's the only thing I can really think of, that if that account is empty, you know, if we have no money for that, we might get, it's almost like a grant from the state, you know, so that's the only thing I can think of that would
maybe affect.
Yeah.
And like our state aid money for the cities that funnels through us, that would have no impact on.
That's the same as the regular stuff for like our rural roads.
There's a formula.
Yep.
and, Yep, they just.
Yep.
Highway user distribution.
Yep.
so.
Yep, that if you remember, we did a transfer last year. That's just kind of how it lined up. The municipal account got really high and we didn't want to lose any of it, so we transferred it to regular. And if it gets, it's kind of a goofy rule how it works, but you know, so, you know, there's another example. They're looking, you know, they didn't look at balance. You just kind of get your share of it.
Tell me it isn't so, Nick, that the government is goofy.
Not here, though, not this one, right? Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, board members, there's another item Nick and I had talked about too, that his department is in need of a new HVAC system out at the building out there. It's as old as the original building, 1983, 6, somewhere in there.
Is it that new?
Yeah.
I thought it was
Maybe even
1980,
older than that,
but I don't know.
COVID funds would work for that, wouldn't
You
it?
can use the ARP money for that. Talked to Bill about it too. He's trying to upgrade that. If you've seen that black box sitting in Bill's office, that is to go out at Road and Bridge. But it's nothing against it. It's a dirty, dusty area, just because of the nature of the work, and there's a lot of dirt and dust, and the ductwork needs to be cleaned and all that. So before Bill does that, we should consider getting a new system there, full HVAC system, air conditioning, furnace, the whole thing. Get the ducts cleaned, and then have it all night, get it sealed up a little better, and then that Bill can get his IT equipment out there as well.
Any ballpark on that?
Not yet, we haven't looked at it, second Wayne on that, so he can get that from one of the local vendors and see what we got. It's not a heavy-duty commercial system based
So
on the size
any
of
local
it.
person could do
Yeah,
that?
absolutely, yeah. It's
Okay.
not like we have to go through JCI or anything like that to get it. We can use our local vendors.
Yep, and
I'm guessing 6,000 to 9,000 somewhere in there, I'm guessing.
we have some issues with our air conditioning from time to time now. We kind of figured out a way around it. I guess it kind of quit on us one day. We thought it finally died, and had a plumber out, and long story short, just reset the breaker, and somehow that whatever, it started working. We've done it multiple times since, but when he was out there, he kind of made the comment that, like, well,
we're on borrowed time.
You probably need to start thinking about replacing this and the furnace, because I don't even know if I can get parts for them anymore. So they're pretty old, so they're pretty much end of life the way it is. But you know, right now we're just gonna run it till it's
serves their purpose.
Yeah, we've got our money out of it, but
I suppose you just air condition the office portion.
yes, there's another line running back to like
The parts room.
like the parts room. So it's, you know, that's insulated and sealed off from the rest of the shop. But
There's an office back in that parts room.
yeah,
Yeah, but you don't obviously do the shop portion.
Oh, no, nothing back there, so.
You know, the thought occurred to me, we see what's happening with our neighbors to the east with their project over there and how the price tag has gone through the roof on their new building and so forth. And I just really think that reiterates how important it is that we take care of our building and spend money
Oh.
maintaining this thing, so that 10 years from now, we don't say we need a whole new one.
You talking Murray County?
Murray
Yeah.
County,
Yeah.
we got a good building, let's spend money on that thing to keep it
Yeah.
good,
Right.
instead of having to replace it down the road.
I mean, it's certainly got its issues, but it's serviceable, you know, at
Yeah.
41 years old or whatever now, but.
You know, earlier, we kind of kicked around this idea of storage for law enforcement and so forth and all that, and the concept, well, maybe we could add on to the building there. Is that something we should budget for this year? Is that kind of worked into your plan here?
So our current shop, it's gonna need a roof coming up soon. I'm sure that'll be spendy, but, that's not the one.
Yeah.
It didn't fit this year, but I'm thinking next year you might see that. I want to budget for a new roof on there.
Is that an issue? Don't you have solar panels on?
No,
Or no?
no. I think it was talked about a while ago, but
Oh, that's good, then we don't have to worry about that.
No, we're doing everything through solar rewards anyway, so we don't have to put up our own.
We're maxed out on our KW.
We're maxed out on
Right,
our kilowatts
right, okay.
anyway, so.
I've never,
No holes in the roof for that.
Perfect.
yeah, I've never actually been up there. It's so high that there's,
You recommend you don't.
there,
We
I
can
think
send
with
it down,
OSHA or
but-
something, we can't go up there. I just have it in my head that we can't go up there, something with insurance or whatever, but, from the inside, you know, there's plenty of leaks inside the shop when it rains and, you know, it's starting to mold and there's,
Can you see it outside?
not yet, but if you looked right, maybe, I don't know.
Your ceiling is insulated too, isn't it, in there, so the water
Yeah, but-
kind of goes where it wants to go anyway?
It's kind of goofy. It's got like, it almost looks like chicken wire down and then insulation on it and then steel on that, but I mean, all that,
Yeah.
it all looks bad to me, so it's not just steel on the roof, it's gonna need that insulation's gotta be molding somewhere if
That's
the
what I was
roof's
gonna say, you could
leaking.
have mold issues there
Yeah.
if you got wood insulation.
Yeah, so it didn't fit this year, but next year I'll probably look at that.
I think we had,
You,
Wayne brought out Tremco Roofing to take a look at, we actually had them look at every roof we have in the county system, and they'll bring us a report back of where we're at, from the fairgrounds to mental health to this building to highway. So we'll get a report back from them. That'll help us a lot to help make decisions for the future.
okay, so right now, in that 5-year outlook, 5-year plan for equipment purchases, we have tentatively planning $100,000 for 2024 for adding on to that south shed, that newer shed, so, you know, that can all be moved around, of course, but had to make a plan, kind of start somewhere, so.
So we do or we don't have money earmarked to add area for law enforcement storage?
It's for his.
That's for us.
Yeah.
We wanted to add on anyway, and I heard Keith talking about it, and I said, well, maybe it makes more sense if we just put a little bit more on, and then you guys got a bay or whatever.
Keith, is that gonna be part of his budget proposal?
That'll be his budget.
So,
Yeah, but I don't have any of that in for 22. I was planning on doing that in 24.
Yeah, what about